Do you have any idea who my father is?
Good morning, everyone. Please, everyone be seated. We have a case before us today, and before I tell you about it, I need you to understand something about this courtroom, about this bench where I sit, and about what justice really means in a place like this. I've been doing this for a very long time. 32 years, since 1992. I've sat in this chair in the Providence Municipal Court. 32 years of looking into the eyes of people who've made mistakes, people who've broken laws, people who've hurt others, and people who've hurt themselves. I've seen just about everything you can imagine. I've seen teenagers who stole because they were hungry. I've seen fathers who made terrible choices because they were desperate. I've seen young people who got behind the wheel when they shouldn't have, who were scared and remorseful and broken by what they'd done. And in many of those cases, I've been able to show mercy. I've been able to give second chances. I've been able to look at someone and say, I believe you can do better. I believe you deserve another opportunity. But every once in a while, a case comes through these doors that tests me. A case that makes me question whether I'm being too soft, too forgiving, too willing to believe in redemption. A case that reminds me that justice isn't just about compassion. It's also about accountability. It's about protecting innocent people. It's about sending a message that some behaviors, some attitudes, some levels of arrogance and entitlement cannot and will not be tolerated in a civilized society. And this is one of those cases. Now, before I go any further, I want to make something absolutely clear, crystal clear, so clear that there can be no misunderstanding whatsoever. This courtroom is a place of respect. It's a place where we seek justice, yes, but we do it with dignity. We do it with fairness. We do it with an understanding that every single person who walks through that door, whether they're wearing an expensive suit or whether they can barely afford the clothes on their back, deserves to be treated with basic human decency. I don't care if you're rich. I don't care if you're poor. I don't care what your last name is, who your father is, who your mother is, what kind of car you drive, what neighborhood you live in, what school you went to. None of that matters here. In this courtroom, everyone, and I mean everyone, is equal under the law. That's not just something I say. That's not just a nice sentiment. That's how it works. That's how it should work. And that's how it will always work as long as I'm sitting in this chair. So let's talk about why we're all here today, November 27th, 2024, at 10:15 in the morning in courtroom 3A of the Providence Municipal Court at 25 Dorrance Street. The defendant before me is a young woman. She's 24 years old. Her name is Vanessa Catherine Ashford. She was born on April 7th, 2001. She currently resides at 2093 Prospect Street, which is on the east side of Providence, one of the wealthier neighborhoods in our city. She graduated from Wheeler School in 2019. That's a prestigious private school, tuition over $42,000 a year. She went on to Northeastern University, graduated in 2023 with a degree in business administration. She's the daughter of Jonathan Ashford, the CEO of Ashford Capital Holdings, one of the largest commercial development companies in Rhode Island. This company, Ashford Capital Holdings, has a valuation of over $500 million. They own 19 commercial properties in downtown Providence, 14 residential developments across Rhode Island, and they employ over 270 people. But you know what? None of that matters. What matters, what truly matters, is what she did. And let me tell you in detail what she did, because this isn't just about breaking a traffic law. This isn't just about going a little too fast or making a careless mistake. This is about something much, much deeper than that. This is about a pattern of behavior that reveals a fundamental contempt for other human beings, for the law, and for the very concept of consequences. 3 months ago, on August 22nd, 2024, at approximately 5 o'clock in the afternoon, this young woman was driving her vehicle through the South Providence neighborhood here in Providence. For those of you who don't know Providence, South Providence is a working-class neighborhood. It's a neighborhood where families live, where children play in their yards, where elderly couples take evening walks, where people work hard every day just to get by. It's not a highway. It's not a racetrack. It's a residential area where people have a right to feel safe. Vanessa Ashford was driving a 2020 Ford Porsche Cayenne Turbo, silver in color, Rhode Island license plate Alpha Sierra 7391. This vehicle is worth over $130,000, and she was driving it at 75 miles per hour. 75 in a 25 mile per hour zone. Let me say that again so it really sinks in. She was going 75 miles per hour in a zone where the posted limit, clearly marked with signs, is 25. That's not just speeding. That's not just going a little over the limit. That's going exactly 3 times the legal speed. That's reckless. That's dangerous. That's the kind of speed that turns a 2-ton vehicle into a weapon. She was on Elmwood Avenue, between Prairie Avenue and Public Street. This is a narrow residential street. There are cars parked on both sides. There are driveways where children ride their bikes. There are front yards where families gather. There are crosswalks where people, trusting that drivers will obey the law, cross the street to get their mail, to visit their neighbors, to go about their daily lives. And Vanessa Ashford, in her $130,000 Porsche, was tearing through that neighborhood at 75 miles per hour. But it gets worse. It gets so much worse. Because when she was pulled over by Officer Anthony Russo, badge number 428, a 14-year veteran of the Providence Police Department, a man who has dedicated nearly a decade and a half of his life to serving and protecting this community, she didn't show remorse. She didn't show concern. She didn't even show basic human decency. According to the police report that's sitting right here in front of me, case number Papa Romeo 2024092634, when Officer Russo approached her vehicle at 5:12 in the afternoon and asked her, politely and professionally, if she knew why she was being pulled over. Do you know what she said? Do you know what her exact words were? She said, and I'm reading this verbatim from the officer's report, do you have any idea who I am? My father employs half the city. One phone call, and you'll be directing traffic in a parking lot. I'm going to be honest with you. When I first read those words, I had to put these papers down. I had to take a moment. I had to stand up from my desk and walk to the window and just breathe. Because those words, those arrogant, dismissive, contemptuous words, they tell me everything I need to know about what we're dealing with here. This isn't just about traffic violations. This isn't about a young person making a mistake. This is about someone who fundamentally believes, down to their core, that money, that privilege, that their family name, that their father's position puts them above the law, above consequences, above basic human decency, above having to treat another human being, a public servant, with even a shred of respect. Officer Russo, being the professional that he is, and I want to commend him for this because not every officer would have maintained their composure in that situation. He remained calm. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't let her provoke him. He explained to her, clearly and professionally, the serious nature of her violation. He explained that she was endangering lives. He explained that 75 miles per hour in a residential neighborhood could kill someone. And do you know what Vanessa Ashford did? Do you know how she responded to this officer, who was trying to help her understand the gravity of what she'd done? She laughed. She actually laughed in his face. Then she took out her iPhone, one of the newest models, probably cost over $1,200, and she started recording him. She pointed that camera at Officer Russo, and she told him she was going to make sure everyone saw how cops harass successful people. She threatened him. She tried to intimidate him. She tried to turn him into some kind of villain on social media when all he was doing was his job, when all he was trying to do was keep people safe. Now, Officer Russo could have escalated that situation. He could have let his emotions get the better of him. He could have responded to her disrespect with anger. But he didn't. He remained professional. He remained calm. He did exactly what a good police officer should do. At 5:26 in the afternoon, he issued her 3 citations. Citation number 24-9753 for reckless driving. Citation number 24-9754 for excessive speeding. and citation number 24-9755 for creating a public hazard. He documented everything properly. He followed protocol. He did his job with dignity despite being treated with such contempt. That's what good police work looks like, and I want everyone to understand that. But here's where this case takes an even more disturbing turn, a turn that makes my blood boil when I think about it. After she received those citations, after Officer Russo did his job and let her go with tickets instead of arresting her on the spot, which he could have done, Vanessa Ashford went home to her 2090 3 Prospect Street address, and she got on her TikTok account. Her username is Vanessa.AshfordOfficial. This account has over 63,000 followers. 63,000 people who watch what she does, who listen to what she says. Many of them probably young people who look up to her because of her wealth, because of her lifestyle, because of the image she projects. And what did she do with that platform? What did she choose to share with those 63,000 people? These posts have been submitted as evidence, Exhibits D through H, and I've watched them multiple times. She posted videos mocking Officer Russo. She made fun of him. She called him names. She called him a wannabe hero. She called him Officer Nobody from Nowhere. She used her platform, her privilege, her reach to try to humiliate a public servant who was simply doing his job, who was trying to keep people safe, who treated her with more respect than she deserved. The first post went up on August 20, second at 7:38 in the evening. That's just over 2 hours after the traffic stop. The caption read, "Just got pulled over by the saddest excuse for authority I've ever seen." The second post went up the next day, August 23rd at 9:45 in the morning. The caption on that one said, "Imagine thinking you can intimidate me. Try harder." One of those videos alone received over 18,000 views within 24 hours. 18,000 people saw her mocking a police officer. 18,000 people, many of them young and impressionable, saw her treating law enforcement with utter contempt. Now, you might think that's where the story ends. You might think that after getting those citations, after having that encounter with Officer Russo, after getting those tickets that are going to cost her money and potentially affect her driving record, Vanessa Ashford would have learned something. You might think she would have taken a moment to reflect on her behavior, to think about what she'd done, to consider that maybe, just maybe, she'd been in the wrong. But you would be mistaken. 4 days later, on August 26, 2024, at 3:20 in the afternoon, she was caught on a security camera. This camera belongs to Mr. Samuel Torres. He lives at 318 Prairie Avenue, right in that same South Providence neighborhood. The video has a timestamp. It's clear as day, 3:20 in the afternoon. And there's Vanessa Ashford in that same silver Porsche Cayenne, Rhode Island license plate, Alpha Sierra 7391, driving recklessly again, same neighborhood, same behavior, same complete and utter disregard for human life, same arrogance, as if those citations, as if that warning, as if the law itself, as if the safety of other human beings meant absolutely nothing to her. Do you understand what this tells me? Do you understand what it means when someone gets caught doing something dangerous and illegal, gets a warning, gets citations, and then 4 days later does the exact same thing in the exact same place? It tells me that this person either doesn't understand the seriousness of what they've done, or worse, far worse, they understand it perfectly well and they simply don't care. It tells me that they believe, truly believe, that the rules don't apply to them. It tells me that they think their money, their status, their family name makes them untouchable. I've been sitting in this chair for 32 years. I've seen teenagers who made stupid mistakes because their friends pressured them. I've seen young people who got behind the wheel after having too much to drink and were devastated, absolutely devastated by what they'd done. I've seen people who came from difficult circumstances, who never had anyone teach them right from wrong, who made errors in judgment because they didn't know better. And in so many of those cases, I've been able to show mercy. I've given second chances. I've reduced sentences. I've offered community service instead of jail time. I've looked into someone's eyes and seen genuine remorse, genuine understanding that they'd done wrong, genuine desire to change, and I've said, okay, I believe you. I believe you can do better. Go and prove it. Because I believe in redemption. I truly do. I believe people can change. I believe in the power of compassion, of giving people the opportunity to learn from their mistakes and become better versions of themselves. I've seen it happen. I've seen people come back to this courtroom years later to thank me for giving them a chance, to tell me they turned their lives around, to show me they became good parents, good workers, good members of society. Those are the moments that make this job worthwhile. Those are the moments that remind me why I do this. But I also believe in accountability. I believe that actions have consequences. I believe that when someone shows a pattern of behavior that demonstrates a complete and total disregard for the safety of others, for the law, for basic human respect, for the value of human life, then this court has an obligation, a solemn obligation, to protect the community. We have an obligation to send a message, a clear and unmistakable message, that no one, and I mean no one, is above the law. Now let me talk about something else that's been brought to my attention, something that frankly makes me angry, something that goes to the heart of why this case matters so much. Vanessa Ashford's father, Jonathan Ashford, CEO of Ashford Capital Holdings, a powerful man in this state, a man whose company owns 19 commercial properties in downtown Providence, 14 residential developments across Rhode Island, a man who employs over 270 people, a man with connections and influence. He's been trying to use that power to make this case go away. Between August 28th and September 10th, I personally received 9 phone calls to my chambers. 9 separate attempts to reach me, to talk to me about this case. I received 5 written letters, professionally written, articulate letters suggesting that perhaps we could find a way to resolve this matter quietly. I had 4 different people, prominent people in this community, come to my office. State Representative Angela Morrison from District 8 came to see me. Attorney Christopher Walsh from the firm of Walsh and Partners on Weybosset Street, a respected lawyer in this community, he came to see me. Victoria Chen, the executive director of the Greater Providence Economic Council, an organization that represents hundreds of businesses, she came to see me too. And even Benjamin Sullivan, a city development official, he came. And do you know what they all suggested? Do you know what they all, in their own polite ways, implied? They suggested that maybe we should work something out. They suggested that maybe Vanessa has learned her lesson. They suggested that maybe a substantial donation to the Rhode Island Safe Streets Initiative or to the Providence Police Foundation. They mentioned amounts between $60,000 and $90,000 might be appropriate. They suggested that perhaps a wealthy, well-connected family could, in essence, buy their way out of consequences. Let me be absolutely crystal clear about something, so clear that there is no room for misunderstanding, no room for doubt, no room for anyone to think otherwise. I don't care how much money someone has. I don't care if they have $500 million or $5 billion. I don't care how many buildings they own in this city or how many people they employ. I don't care if they're willing to donate $60,000 or $600,000 or $6 million. Money does not buy justice in this courtroom. Influence does not buy a pass on consequences. Connections do not erase what happened on Elmwood Avenue on August 22nd and August 26th. And no amount of donations, no amount of deals, no amount of backroom arrangements, no amount of phone calls or letters or meetings will change what happens here today. Because if I were to accept that, if I were to allow wealth and influence to determine the outcome of this case, then what would I be? What would this courtroom be? What would our justice system be? We would be a sham. We would be a joke. We would be a system where the rich play by different rules, where the powerful get away with behavior that would land a poor person in jail, where justice has a price tag. And I cannot, I refuse to allow that to happen in my courtroom. You know what I think about when I look at this case? I think about the families in that South Providence neighborhood. I think about parents who heard a car roaring down Elmwood Avenue at 75 miles per hour and felt their hearts stop, felt that surge of terror wondering, if their child was playing outside, if their child was in the front yard, if their child was about to become a statistic. I think about 68-year-old Mr. Luis Ramirez and his wife Carmen, 66 years old. They're both retired postal workers. Luis worked for the Postal Service for 37 years. Carmen worked there for 34 years. They dedicated their lives to serving this community. And on August 22nd, at 5:08 in the afternoon, they were crossing Elmwood Avenue to visit their daughter Maria, who lives at 412 Prairie Avenue, and they had to scramble back onto the sidewalk because Vanessa Ashford couldn't be bothered to slow down. They had to jump to safety. These elderly people who have given so much to this community because a 24-year-old in a $130,000 car thought speed limits didn't apply to her. I think about all the young people out there who are watching cases like this, who are paying attention to whether the justice system works the same for everyone, or whether it's different if you have money, different if your father can make phone calls, different if you can afford expensive lawyers and try to intimidate police officers. What lesson are they learning? What message are we sending? And I'll tell you something else I think about. I think about what could have happened. We are very, very fortunate, and I mean extraordinarily fortunate, that no one was hurt in these incidents. But what if there had been? What if 8-year-old Isabella Martinez had been playing in her front yard at 326 Elmwood Avenue? What if 55-year-old Mr. James Chen, a school bus driver for 19 years, a man who serves this community every single day, had been walking to his car at 3:20 that afternoon? What if Mr. Ramirez had been taking his daily afternoon walk, the walk he's been taking for the past 8 years to manage his diabetes and stay healthy? I have 7 grandchildren, 7 beautiful grandchildren. Their ages range from 6 to 16. My youngest granddaughter, Isabella Rose Caprio, she's 6 years old. She was born on July 14th, 2018. And when I think about her, when I picture her little face, when I imagine her playing in a neighborhood, riding her tricycle, drawing with chalk on the sidewalk, enjoying a sunny day the way 6-year-olds should be able to do, and when I think about someone like Vanessa Ashford driving 75 miles per hour through that neighborhood with complete disregard for her safety, complete disregard for her life, it makes my blood run cold. It makes me realize that we're not just talking about traffic violations here. We're talking about potential tragedy. We're talking about lives that could have been destroyed. We're talking about families that could have been shattered. We're talking about funerals and grief and pain that lasts forever. Because that's what happens when someone drives recklessly. They don't just risk their own life. They risk everyone around them. And the victims are always innocent. They're always people who were just living their lives, people who had no say in what happened to them, people who trusted that others would follow the rules, would act responsibly, would value human life enough to slow down. Now let me tell you what the prosecutor has recommended. Assistant District Attorney Michael Thompson has been with the Providence District Attorney's Office for 11 years. He's handled over 415 traffic cases with a conviction rate of 91%. He knows what he's doing. He's seen these cases before. He understands the law, understands justice, understands what needs to happen to protect the community, and he's asking for a substantial fine of $12,000, a 2-year license suspension, 160 hours of mandatory community service, and a jail sentence of 90 days to drive home the seriousness of these offenses. The defense attorney, Attorney Rachel Foster from Foster and Associates Legal Group on Westminster Street, and she's a good attorney. Let me make that clear. She's been practicing criminal defense law for 13 years. She graduated from Suffolk University Law School in 2011. She's done her job well. She's advocated for her client. That's what defense attorneys are supposed to do, and I respect that. She's asking for leniency. She's pointing out that Vanessa Ashford has no prior criminal record. She's suggesting that a fine of $4,000 and 70 hours of community service would be sufficient. She's also mentioned that her client is young, that a harsh sentence could damage her future career prospects, that we should consider her education, her potential, her whole life ahead of her. I've listened to both arguments carefully. I've reviewed all the evidence multiple times. I've read the police reports, every word of them. I've looked at those social media posts, specifically the TikTok posts from August 22nd at 7:30, 8 in the evening and August 23rd at 9:45 in the morning, where Vanessa Ashford posted those videos with captions including, "Just got pulled over by the saddest excuse for authority I've ever seen," and "Imagine thinking you can intimidate me. Try harder." I've watched the security camera footage from August 26th at 3:20 in the afternoon showing her vehicle traveling at excessive speeds through that same neighborhood. I've considered the defendant's age, 24 years old. I've considered her background, her education, her lack of prior criminal history. I've considered everything that should be considered in a case like this. I've prayed on it. I've lost sleep over it. I've talked it through with myself 100 times. But I keep coming back to something fundamental, something that I think gets lost sometimes in our legal system, something that matters more than degrees or family wealth or future career prospects. We have laws for a reason. We have speed limits for a reason. We have consequences for breaking those laws for a reason. And the reason is simple, beautifully simple, fundamentally simple: to protect people, to keep our communities safe, to ensure that everyone, regardless of their age or their wealth or where they live, can live without fear of someone's reckless behavior destroying their lives. You know what troubles me most about this case? It's not even the speeding, as serious and dangerous as that is. It's not even the reckless endangerment of innocent people. It's the attitude. It's the arrogance. It's the complete and utter lack of understanding that our actions affect other people with real families and real lives and real dreams and real hopes. When I look at the evidence in this case, when I read that police report from August 22nd, when I see those social media posts from her TikTok account with 63,000 followers watching, when I watch that security camera footage from August 26th, I see someone who has been taught, maybe not explicitly with words, but through experience, through getting what they want, through never facing real consequences, that the rules don't apply to them, that they can do what they want, that their family name or their father's money will always bail them out, will always make problems disappear. Well, not today. Not in this courtroom. Not on my watch. Not while I'm sitting in this chair. Not while I have the power to send a different message. I want to explain something about sentencing, because I think it's important for everyone to understand what I'm trying to accomplish here. When a judge sentences someone, we're not trying to be cruel. We're not trying to destroy lives. We're not sitting up here taking pleasure in other people's pain. We're trying to do several things at once, and all of them matter. First, we're trying to punish the wrongdoing. Yes, punishment is part of justice. Actions have to have consequences, or else what do laws even mean? Second, we're trying to deter that person from doing it again, to make the consequence serious enough that they think twice before repeating the behavior. Third, we're trying to send a message to others who might be watching, who might be thinking about doing the same thing, that this behavior won't be tolerated, that there are real consequences. And fourth, and this is perhaps the most important, we're trying to protect the community, to keep innocent people safe from those who would endanger them. In most cases, I can balance these goals with a sentence that's firm but merciful, a sentence that punishes but also offers a clear path to redemption, a sentence that holds someone accountable while still giving them hope for the future. But in this case, we have multiple violations on August 22nd and August 26th. We have a complete lack of remorse, not just an absence of remorse, but active contempt for the officer who tried to help her. We have attempted intimidation of Officer Anthony Russo, badge number 428. We have public mockery of law enforcement through social media posts that were viewed by over 18,000 people. We have the use of a platform with 63,000 followers to spread disrespect and contempt for public servants. And most troubling of all, we have a repeat offense just 4 days after the first incident, a repeat offense that shows she learned absolutely nothing, that she felt no remorse, that she didn't care. This tells me that the defendant either doesn't understand the seriousness of what she's done, or she understands it perfectly well and simply doesn't care. Either way, it tells me that anything less than a serious, substantial, meaningful consequence would be a failure of this court's duty to protect the public. It would be a failure of my responsibility as a judge. Now, I want to address something directly because I know what people are going to say. I know what the reaction is going to be. There are people who will watch what happens here today, who will read about this case in the Providence Journal tomorrow, who will see videos of it on YouTube or social media, and they will say, Judge Caprio is being too harsh. He's known for being compassionate. He's the judge who helps people. He's the judge who gives breaks. He's the judge who cries with defendants. Why is he being so tough in this case? Why is he being so different? And my answer is simple, and I want everyone to hear this clearly. Compassion without accountability isn't compassion at all. It's enabling. It's allowing bad behavior to continue. It's sending a message that there are no real consequences, that you can keep doing wrong, and someone will always be there to excuse it, to minimize it, to let you off easy. When I give someone a break, when I reduce a sentence, when I show mercy, and I've done it hundreds of times in 32 years, it's because I see genuine remorse. It's because I see someone who understands what they did wrong and wants to make it right. It's because I see someone who made a mistake but isn't defined by that mistake. Someone who has learned from it, who is already changing, who deserves another chance. But I don't see any of that here. What I see is someone who thinks she's untouchable. What I see is someone who has shown through her actions on August 22nd and August 26th and through her words to Officer Russo and in her social media posts that she has learned nothing from this experience except maybe that she needs better lawyers next time, except maybe that she needs to be more careful about getting caught. Let me also address what the defense attorney said about Vanessa having no prior criminal record. That's true. Vanessa Catherine Ashford has never been arrested before. She's never been convicted of any crime, and normally that would weigh heavily in favor of leniency. It would be a significant factor. But you know what? Most 24-year-olds don't have criminal records. That's not special. That's not an accomplishment. That's the bare minimum of being a law-abiding citizen. We don't give out awards for not breaking the law up until now. We don't celebrate people for doing what they're supposed to do. I also want to address the argument that she's young, that she's only 24 years old, born in 2001, that she's still learning, that she's still developing, that we should give her a chance to grow, that a harsh sentence could affect her future. And look, I understand that argument. I really do. I'm not unsympathetic to it. Young people make mistakes. Their brains are still developing. The prefrontal cortex, which controls judgment and decision-making, doesn't fully mature until the mid-20s. They don't always think about consequences the way adults do. I understand all of that. I've read the research. I've taken it into account in countless cases over 32 years. But here's the thing. At 24 years old, you're old enough to vote. You've been able to vote for 6 years since you were 18. You're old enough to serve in the military, to put on a uniform and defend this country. You're old enough to sign contracts, to get married, to have children of your own. You're old enough to get a job, to pay taxes, to be a full member of society. And you are certainly, absolutely, without question old enough to know that driving 75 miles per hour in a 25 zone is dangerous. You're old enough to know that threatening a police officer is wrong. You're old enough to know that mocking someone on social media with 63,000 followers watching is cruel and inappropriate. And you're certainly old enough to know that when you get caught doing something dangerous and illegal on August 22nd, you don't go out and do it again 4 days later on August 26th. This isn't about a young person making an innocent mistake. This isn't about a lapse in judgment. This isn't about someone who didn't know better. This is about someone who has been raised, whether intentionally or not, to believe that rules don't apply to them, that money solves everything, that privilege is a shield, that consequences are for other people. And unless this court intervenes, unless we send a clear and unmistakable message right now, in this moment, I fear what might happen next time. Because there will be a next time. People with this attitude, with this level of arrogance, with this degree of entitlement, they don't stop until something forces them to stop. They don't learn until the consequences become real. I've been thinking a lot about what justice looks like in this case. I've been wrestling with it. I've been praying about it. I've been asking myself what the right thing to do is. And I've come to a conclusion. Justice isn't just about punishing Vanessa Ashford for what she did on August 22nd and August 26th. It's about protecting future victims, the people who might be hurt or killed if she continues this behavior. It's about sending a message to every other entitled young person out there who thinks their family name or their father's bank account puts them above the law. It's about vindicating Officer Anthony Russo, badge number 428, who was just doing his job at 5:12 in the afternoon on August 22nd and was subjected to abuse and humiliation and threats for it. And it's about restoring faith in our justice system, faith that maybe has been shaken by too many cases where wealthy defendants walk away with a slap on the wrist while poor defendants face the full force of the law. So here's what I've decided, and I want you to understand that I've given this an enormous amount of thought. I've considered every factor. I've weighed every argument from both Assistant District Attorney Michael Thompson and Attorney Rachel Foster. I've looked at every piece of evidence. I've reviewed the law, and I've prayed on it because decisions like this aren't easy, even when they're necessary, even when they're right. On the charge of reckless driving from August 22nd, 2024, citation number 24-9753, I'm sentencing you to the maximum penalty allowed under Rhode Island General Law 11-9-1. That's 90 days in the adult correctional institutions, the state prison on Howard Avenue here in Cranston, on the charge of attempting to intimidate a law enforcement officer under Rhode Island General Law 11-30, 7-7. I'm adding another 60 days to be served consecutively, not concurrently. That means one after the other, not at the same time. On the additional charge of reckless driving from the second incident on August 26, 2024, as documented by the security camera at 318 Prairie Avenue, that's another 90 days, also consecutive. That's a total of 240 days, 8 months. You will serve this time at the Women's Division of the Adult Correctional Institutions. And I'm ordering that there be no early release under the good behavior provisions, no work release program, and no special privileges or accommodations. You'll serve your time like everyone else who sits in that facility. Your reporting date will be December 2nd, 2024 at 9 o'clock in the morning. In addition, I'm imposing a fine of $18,000 to be paid in full within 60 days of today's date, which means by January 26th, 2025. And before anyone says that's too much or too little, let me explain what that money will do. It will be divided equally into 3 parts. $6,000 will go to the Rhode Island Traffic Safety Coalition to help families who have been affected by exactly this kind of behavior. $6,000 will go to the Providence Public Schools Pedestrian Safety Education Program to teach children about traffic safety. And $6,000 will go to support the Providence Police Department's officer wellness and training programs. That money will do good. It will help people. It will create something positive from this negative situation. I'm also suspending your driver's license, Rhode Island license number Alpha 392746, for 3 years. Not 1 year, not 2 years, but 3 full years beginning today, November 27th, 2024, and ending November 27th, 2027. And when those 3 years are up, when you've served your time, when you've paid your fine, when you've completed everything I'm about to require, you will not automatically get your license back. You will be required to retake both the written examination and the practical road test administered by the Rhode Island Division of Motor Vehicles, as if you're a brand new driver. You will be required to complete a comprehensive driver safety course, minimum 5 hours of instruction. and you will be required to perform 225 hours of community service, specifically working with the Rhode Island chapter of Families for Safer Streets, or with trauma victims at Rhode Island Hospital's emergency department, so you can see firsthand, up close, the real consequences of reckless driving, so you can look into the eyes of people whose lives have been destroyed by someone just like you. Furthermore, I'm ordering that you be prohibited from operating any motor vehicle, even with someone else's permission, during the entire period of your license suspension from November 27th, 2024 through November 27th, 2027. If you're caught driving during this time, if Officer Russo or any other officer pulls you over, if anyone sees you behind the wheel of any vehicle, you will face additional criminal charges under Rhode Island General Law 30, 1-11-8, and you will face a minimum of an additional 1 year of jail time. No exceptions, no excuses, no second chances. Now I can see the shock on faces in this courtroom. Some of you probably think I'm being too harsh. Some of you probably think I'm not being harsh enough. But let me tell you why I've made this decision today. Here in courtroom 3A of the Providence Municipal Court, Vanessa Ashford needs to understand that her actions have consequences. Real consequences. Not consequences that her father Jonathan Ashford's $500 million company can make go away. Not consequences that her lawyers from Foster and Associates can negotiate into nothing. Real, tangible, life-changing consequences that will affect her every single day. 8 months in the women's division at the adult correctional institutions is a long time. It's long enough to think, long enough to reflect, long enough to understand what you've done, long enough to hopefully, if there's any goodness in you, emerge as a changed person. But it's not so long that it destroys someone's life. She'll be out by August of 2025. She'll still be 24 years old, turning 25. She'll still have her whole life ahead of her. She can still go back to school if she wants. She can still build a career. She can still become a productive member of society. She can still have a good life. But she needed to learn this lesson. And she needed to learn it now, before her arrogance and recklessness killed someone. Because make no mistake, that's where this was heading. It was only a matter of time before her behavior resulted in tragedy. And I would rather have her sit in the women's division for 8 months being angry at me, hating me, cursing my name, than have her spend the rest of her life living with the fact that she killed 8-year-old Isabella Martinez or 68-year-old Luis Ramirez because she thought she was too important, too special, too privileged to follow the rules. The 3-year license suspension from November 2024 through November 2027 is designed to be meaningful. In our society, especially here in Rhode Island, where public transportation is limited, driving is a privilege we often take for granted. It's how we get to work, how we run errands, how we visit friends, how we live our lives. But it's not a right. It's a privilege that comes with enormous responsibility because you're controlling a machine that can kill people. And when someone abuses that privilege as egregiously as Vanessa Ashford, as they need to lose it for a significant period of time. They need to feel what it's like to not have that freedom, to depend on others, to be inconvenienced, to understand that driving is something you earn through responsible behavior. As for the $18,000 fine due January 26, 2025, and the 225 hours of community service, those are designed to ensure that something positive, something meaningful comes from this negative situation. That money will help people who have been affected by reckless driving. That community service will, I hope, I pray, open her eyes to the real human cost of behavior like hers when she works with trauma victims at Rhode Island Hospital, when she sits with families who have lost loved ones to reckless drivers, when she has to look into their eyes and see their pain. Now I know what some people are going to say. They're going to say that I'm making an example of her because of who her father is, because Jonathan Ashford is the CEO of Ashford Capital Holdings, because she comes from wealth and privilege. And you know what? They're partially right. I am making an example, but not because of who her father is. I'm making an example because of who she chose to be, because of the arrogance she displayed on August 22nd at 5:12 in the afternoon, because of the contempt she showed for Officer Anthony Russo, because of the danger she posed to innocent people on Elmwood Avenue and Prairie Avenue, because of those TikTok posts to her 63,000 followers, because of that repeat offense 4 days later. If this had been a first offense, if she had shown remorse on August 22nd, if she'd apologized to Officer Russo with genuine sincerity, if she hadn't posted those videos mocking him on August 22nd at 7:38 in the evening and August 23rd at 9:45 in the morning, if she hadn't gone out and done it again 4 days later on August 26th at 3:20 in the afternoon, then we would be having a very different conversation right now. I probably would have given her a fine of maybe $3,000 or $4,000, some community service of 60 or 70 hours, maybe a 6-month license suspension, and sent her on her way with a stern warning and a belief that she could do better. But that's not what happened. What happened was a display of arrogance and entitlement that frankly disgusts me. And I've been doing this job since 1990, 32 years, and I've seen too much, learned too much, understood too much about human nature to pretend that a slap on the wrist is going to change that attitude. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes, people need to face real consequences to understand that their actions matter, that other people matter, that the world doesn't revolve around them. I want to say something to the parents who are watching this case, whether you're here in Providence or watching this somewhere else, whether you're reading about it in tomorrow's Providence Journal or seeing it on social media. To the fathers and mothers out there who have children, whether they're young or grown, whether they're teenagers or adults, please, I'm begging you, teach your children that everyone deserves respect. Teach them that police officers like Officer Russo are people doing a difficult and dangerous job to keep us safe. Teach them that laws exist to protect us all, not to inconvenience them. Teach them that money and status don't make you better than anyone else, don't put you above the law, don't give you the right to treat others with contempt. Teach them that actions have consequences, always, without exception. Because if you don't teach your children these lessons, if you let them grow up thinking they're above it all, thinking that your money or your influence will always protect them, thinking that they can do whatever they want without consequences, then you're failing them. You're not loving them. You're not preparing them for life. You're setting them up for a very hard fall. And when that fall comes, when they're standing in a courtroom like this one, courtroom 3A at 20, 5 Doran Street in Providence, facing a judge like me on a day like today, November 27th, 2024, it's going to be too late to undo all those years of bad lessons, all those years of enabling, all those years of teaching them that they're special and different and above the rules that apply to everyone else. I don't know what kind of parenting led to the behavior I've seen in this case from Vanessa Catherine Ashford. I'm not here to judge Jonathan and Catherine Ashford's parenting. That's not my place. That's not my job. But I will say this, if my child, if my son or daughter had behaved the way this defendant behaved on August 22nd and August 26th, if they had spoken to Officer Russo the way she did, if they had posted those TikTok videos, if they had shown that level of arrogance and contempt, I would be ashamed. I would be heartbroken. I would feel like I had failed as a parent. And I would absolutely, without hesitation, support any consequence that might help them become a better person, that might teach them what I had failed to teach them, that might save them from themselves. Now before I close, I want to say something directly to you, Vanessa Ashford. You're 24 years old, born April 7th, 2001. You're young. You have your whole life ahead of you. Family education, come baby names, 75, old money baby names. That's unrich and glamorous than a teep squewater you read it. Comrade name and its comments will if A8. What are your most old bonus net? Wikipedia. Or Wikilist of Fury after facing the Stanley 4 times article to the response to school the AP skeptic will be very you. Or quick reckless streaming even if Castle how about it? Only be the Lawrence's family and what's the